Hi, everyone. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Eva Wong. I'm one of the lawyers in Parity Legal. Welcome to Regulatory Rewind. We are episode 21, and we are in week 39 of the year. 39 is fast approaching the end of Q3, and there are many news stories for this fortnightly Regulatory Rewind with the Parity Legal team. Now, first up, can we grab some slides, please? We are, today, there's three of us. There's myself in the middle, having a little party at the Polkadot Festival. And there's Gustav, also having a little bit of a party because we are very busy at the moment doing the good things that Parity Legal do, yet at the same time thinking about all the things that Parity lawyers might be thinking about in the big Web3 world and the vision that we are working towards to achieve. And Glenn's back. He's very chilled. He's come back from holiday, sitting in a chair, and the three of us will be talking about the good things that are the interesting developments in the Web3 space over the last 2 weeks. Gustav's here and Glenn's here. Gustav is going to first talk about things over in the EU, being our EU colleague, and then Glenn will join us a little bit later on to talk about the UK developments. But we're trying something new out. We're going to have us both on screen, so I can ask Gustav things and Gustav can react to me, perhaps. So over to you, Gustav, on Europe.
Thank you, Eva. Maybe because we are changing the structure, we forgot the slide about our disclaimers.
Disclaimer.
So this is not legal advice. We are nice legal people. We are telling you all kinds of stuff. But please consult with your own lawyers if you want to do a project or do anything that has legal implications. And with that, I would start off with Europe, as shown on the slide already. First, I want to point to an interesting MiCA development. MiCA, we've talked about it lengthily in a lot of episodes, and it's a regulation that's there to harmonize the regulated market for crypto industry in the EU. France now is against passporting licenses from other European countries to France, because they're afraid that the quality of the checks that are done in other countries might be different than in France. And they are calling the European Securities and Markets Authority, ESMA, to take over the supervision of major crypto companies, as have done Austria and Italy before. That is an interesting approach because MiCA was actually implemented to avoid picking and choosing jurisdictions within the EU and having a same level of controls all over the European Union. It seems that this might not work, or it seems there's other political stuff going on that we are not aware of. But it might be interesting to have a central authority looking at all these crypto assets providers.
So that, I
Um,
mean, Gustav, that's kind of unusual, right? Because the whole point of the EU and MiCA is that it's meant to be harmonized and it's meant to be a
yes,
standard level playing field, no forum shopping. But France is
exactly.
effectively saying, we don't think that anyone else is going to do it as good as maybe they could, or maybe a more centralized authority could. So there's disharmony in harmonization.
So the harmony is only on the level of European regulation, but of course there's local interpretation of the regulation, and there are different authorities who come into play, and it might be that they develop different ways of thinking about something. Yeah, it probably has a point. The other thing is how much more do we want to have European uh, authority deciding upon things that are actually rather local, or seem to be rather local, because that would be then the case even for someone who's just having a license using in one
Yeah.
or two countries and not in all of them. But I'm
Well,
thinking we are getting a bit lengthy here.
well, you know what the Brits would say about that. Brexit is exactly the opposite of what is happening here. But
Yeah.
what else is happening in Europe?
So I have a little chapter on privacy coming up on the next slides. So one, starting 2027, there is supposed to be a new EU regulation about money laundering that will prohibit credit institutions, financial institution, and crypto asset service providers (CASPs) of maintaining accounts or handling privacy-preserving cryptocurrencies. So they are going forward against anonymous accounts and any kind of mixers that would preserve the privacy of users in using their cryptocurrency. And that's part of a privacy battle, one could say, that we have in general. So it might be that privacy preserving coins like Monero won't be at all accessible on centralized exchanges. And there's more state control over such CASPs. There's still room for negotiation, so there isn't a final version that's decided, but it's a continuous conversation and nothing is set in stone, some say, but it is part of increased restrictions in working with privacy-preserving cryptocurrencies and having anonymous accounts on centralized exchanges. Similar to that, there are sanctions for Russia. The EU has introduced the 19 sanction package against Russia, and the goal of that regulation is to prevent Russia from circumventing existing financial sanctions through using cryptocurrency transaction. Um, the implementation strategy is targeted on centralized exchange and using existing regulatory frameworks for that. But of course, this ties in to the regulatory frameworks that are potentially coming up. The challenges that such regulation is facing, or that the sanctions are facing, is that, of course, decentralized platforms are not monitored in a way, or cannot be monitored in a way as needed to really say if something would fall under the sanction regime. Because if we have anonymous accounts, of course, we normally don't know if the owner of the account is based in Russia or based anywhere else in the world. So it is also a move towards implementing something that doesn't work, to then, in the next step, possibly have more argumentation why we need more control from governments about people moving cryptos.
And that's a constant battle, as you say, in the previous part of your trilogy of privacy, in that it is a constant law enforcement versus privacy, and and financial privacy. So this continues to be something that is always going on in the blockchain and crypto world. What's next in your trilogy of privacy?
Next is the European chat control legislation that has been proposed. Um, the chat control legislation would require platforms to scan private messages for illegal content before they are encrypted, which is basically a backdoor in encryption. And a lot of lawyers say it's difficult to justify under the existing jurisprudence of Court of Justice of the European Union, pointing to confidentiality of communication and protecting personal data. There have been, I think, 15 countries that supported the proposal, and in the end, the the final round was, would Germany jump in or not? And Germany voted against the proposal, which is a good thing when we talk about privacy, because with that, the proposal fell short of the 65% of the population threshold that is required for that passage. Um, one of the things mentioned in the article that is shown on the slide is that the more states are targeting and controlling the communication between people on regular centralized chats, the more people will understand the advantage of Web3 technology. Because in Web3, as you know, not your keys, not your data. So you have self custody of your data, of the content of your chat, and no one can interfere with that. Um, so on the one hand, I would say I'm super happy that we don't have a chat control coming up in Europe. But on the other side, it might be that even the European regulators, or the German regulators who voted against it, and others who voted against it, saw that if you go into it too deep, if you really want to control everything that people are doing, then people will be very motivated to change the tools that they are using. As it was, I think, a few years back when Facebook acquired WhatsApp, there was a huge move of people out of WhatsApp because they said they don't trust it anymore. And that was just because it was Facebook. There was no regulation about it, but we know that Facebook is probably monitoring more than they are officially saying. But this
Well,
could have been
that's a
also
centralization point, even within the tech industries themselves. That if it's not a regulator requiring access to information, if the users feel a perceived threat to their privacy from industry players, that's a big one. But if there were to be a regulatory move that could affect people's trust in the government's powers to be able to scan, to enforce technology providers to scan messages and affect their privacy, then it's up to users to make that change almost. And I think that's sort of the flips. This is not the first time this came up, and I think we talked about it last time. It's not the first time that this has been tried to push through in the EU, but it is the second time, and probably the the closest call so far. And I think at this point it is also useful to reflect that the UK is not part of the EU. I know I say that over and over again, and it's actually in this situation it's actually worse. We normally talk about crypto regulation and how the UK has a separate opportunity to take a step back and see what has been done and what others are doing in order to do their bit in terms of crypto regulation. But in this case, the UK, because it's not part of the EU, doesn't have to be part of chat control, but it's actually implemented something different and earlier and is already law. So the Online Safety Act is 2023. And when people are having discussions about chat control, people will point out to the fact that the UK already has this law. And obviously, same objectives. It's about protecting, children from paedophiles. At its core, it's about crime fighting and prevention of crime. But the flip side is that it could impact people's privacy, particularly when messaging services could be scanned, and Ofcom has a right to actually require backdoors. So Ofcom right now in the UK has this power to do so. It has not yet exercised that power. It is going through consultation to understand what that should look like. But it's caused huge uproar in the UK, and the major providers such as Signal and WhatsApp have already threatened to leave should the government actually, or they'll geofence the UK should the government actually enforce these powers and require the FCA to, sorry, not the FCA, the Ofcom to actually scan these messages. So it's the UK is the first, I think, ahead of the EU for a change to have legislation giving the regulators this power. It could be part of a global precedent. I don't think any other countries do this yet, but other countries might consider it if the UK has sufficient justification. Um, and I think just saying that there is a discretion for the government to not do something doesn't necessarily give people the trust in the government to not actually use it. So there's some very big privacy related topics there. Thanks, Gustav. I think I'm going to stick in the UK and maybe talk a bit about UK crypto regulation again. Back to crypto. And Glenn, who's also based in the UK, will have a couple of comments about the UK things that are going on. So last week was a big week in the UK. Those of you who were here, you would have known that we had some big visitors. And at the same time, the FCA has so those of you following Reg Rewind regularly will know that we've been talking about the legislative efforts by HM Treasury in the UK to provide draft legislation. Over the last, there have been consultation periods, there have been draft legislation. This April, there was the most concrete form of draft legislation with feedback due next month. No, feedback is already ongoing. And the UK's approach is same risk, same regulation, but same regulatory outcome. And the FCA's consultation was last Wednesday, where they have now brought guidance around how they plan to bring their regulated firms into the regulatory framework by adapting existing financial services laws for crypto for the crypto industry. So this is a very big piece of news in that this is the first time the FCA has come out with a very large piece of consultation. And Glenn had some comments about last week as well, and the UK and its special visitors.
Thank you, Eva. So, yeah, last week the UK and the US have established a joint crypto task force to align on crypto rules and regulations. This obviously comes after President Trump made the trip to the UK as well. And the group, which is led by both nations' treasury departments, are set to deliver policy recommendations by March next year. So, in the past, we've seen that the current SEC commissioner, Hester Pierce, proposed a digital security sandbox between the UK and the US. And so, this seems like a trend or a theme that the US and the UK are starting to align more closely on crypto policy as well. So, interesting developments happening on the regulatory front in the UK, thanks to maybe some push from the US.
This kind of reminds me of, I don't know, I'm going to show my age now, and maybe my political bias, but Love Actually, there was the scene where Hugh Grant shakes the hand of the US president. When Hugh Grant plays the UK prime minister, and he shakes the hand of, it talks about their special relationship in the between the UK and the US. It's interesting because obviously there were two major bits of crypto regulatory news during the state visit by President Trump. And I think that it's also okay to mention that, I mean, it's objectively, we're stating that there is actually quite a lot going on in the UK in terms of politics. The Reform UK Party has come out as openly pro crypto, and they have modelled themselves on many political stances in line with the Trump administration. So this is one of the streams that they are also trying to show that they are pro crypto. And it's interesting because no major political UK party has said the kind of things that Reform has said. And that's it on UK politics. I'm going to jump into Asia, actually. Asia is far away from the UK and Europe, but not that far, because there are parts of Asia and Europe which sometimes I'm still working out which side a certain country may fall in or not, which is a political statement in itself. But to a couple of stablecoin related stories, Glenn, I know you're going to talk about another stablecoin story in a territory closer to your home, but in China and South Korea, there have been two stablecoin issuances. One in China, which is the Chinese one pegged stablecoin, which is fully regulated, and in South Korea, the one pegged stablecoin, and both are over collateralized, i.e., they are fully backed 1-to-1 by fiat or government debt instruments held by custodians. This is a big development in both of those countries, but we understand that perhaps there are different reasons to it. From the Chinese side, it's supposed to help support cross-border transactions, particularly in countries in their Belt and Road Initiative. So this would facilitate trade payments denominated in yuan outside of mainland China. It's an interesting development because China obviously has had some ups and downs in terms of its relationship with crypto and crypto regulation. And in South Korea, it's around it's part of South Korea's wider policy of revamping what they have been doing with crypto regulation. So there are stablecoin initiatives to enable more fintechs to be drawn towards developing in South Korea, but also in protecting and regulating consumers in South Korea as well. So in Asia still, Kazakhstan, which I can pronounce, Kazakhstan has also started a pilot for a stablecoin. Kazakhstan is also one of the big countries that I understand in the Central Asia region that are trying to put themselves in the geopolitical race towards being a hub for crypto innovation. And they've also had, I think they've also got a CBDC since November 2023. So they have had quite a few major developments in Kazakhstan already. And obviously the US has had the Genius Act over the summer. And the latest development last week was that Caroline Pham, who's the acting CFTC, so that's the Commodity Futures Trading Commission of the US, she said that they're exploring a new policy to allow stablecoins to be used as tokenized collaterals in derivatives markets. So apparently this is thought to be the killer app for stablecoins, and it's part of this big crypto sprint that is aligned with all of the other US legislative developments, which we're constantly looking over, aren't we, Glenn? I wondered, actually, I still can't pronounce the next one. I might have to hand it over to Gustav, who's going to cover another stan. How do we pronounce it, Gustav? Kyrgyzstan.
We are now jumping to Kyrgyzstan, which is in the same area as Kazakhstan, if I'm
Thank you.
not mistaken. Um, so in Kyrgyzstan, they passed amendments on the virtual asset bills in 3 readings, defining terms like state crypto reserve and state crypto mining. Um, the bill presented a framework for issuance and circulation of stablecoins, tokenizing real-world assets, and state-run industry operations. And the crypto reserve that they established would allow the state to accumulate its own assets in cryptographic form, also through crypto mining, as well as tokenization of real-world asset and fiat-based um, stablecoins. Um, that's that's part of a race between neighboring countries. Like Kazakhstan has made something similar recently. So we see that this is becoming more and more a hub for um, state state activity in crypto. The bill still needs to be signed by the president to become law, but they have come quite far, and I guess we will report how this comes out soon.
Oh, good
Um,
stuff. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like I've just realised we're so close to time already. We might need to skip through a couple of slides.
okay,
Would it be okay if we wrap up on Kyrgyzstan and
yes,
move on to Middle East and Africa?
yes.
Yeah, we've got so much
Um,
material.
Hi, guys. So yeah, over in the UAE, they signed on to the Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, which is CARF. So as we know, many nations, including the UK, various nations around the world, will have to introduced the OECD's crypto asset framework, which will require VASPs, intermediaries, wallet providers, crypto exchanges, brokers, et cetera, to sign on to a data sharing agreement. And this aims to address tax and information sharing around taxes. So for the UAE, this will begin in 2027, and the data exchange will start in 2028. So things are heating up with the crypto reporting. And so if I can invite back Gustav to talk about Central and South America.
Yes, I will try to be brief. So this is part of what we started last time, where we gave a bit of an overview about what's happening in crypto regulation in Central and South America. I wanted to go a bit into Argentina because Argentina is um, one of the countries where a lot of has been going on. So Argentina already enacted um, um, virtual asset service providers regulation in 2024. They are allowing the use of crypto. They are allowing the use of trading. They don't recognize it as a legal tender, but contracts can be settled with crypto. And they have key features in VASPs like AML and KYC, as we see it in a lot of countries. Especially under the new president Milei, Argentina advocates for crypto independence from state control, emphasizing economic freedom for market participants. And the country has positioned itself as a leading crypto destination in Latin America, with a recent report coming out that Argentina even overtakes Brazil in crypto adoption in Latin America when you look at the numbers of citizens living there. So Argentina is only 1/5 of the population that Brazil has, but they have received 91 billion worth of crypto on chain just between July 23 and June 24. So there's a lot of activity going on. And we will closer watch Argentina, I guess, over the next episodes,
Very
because
closely watching Argentina, indeed.
yes. And I think with that, I would hand over to Glenn for Bermuda and Cayman Islands.
Thank you. Good stuff. So, quickly covering Bermuda. Recently, the Bermuda Stablecoin Association officially launched during a digital finance roundtable hosted by the government, industry leaders, and the Bermuda Monetary Authority. So, we see some convergence between the public sector and the private sector. Moving over to the Cayman Islands, we see that they recently launched a public consultation on legislative changes to enable fully tokenized funds and real world assets. So it seems like Cayman Islands is looking to keep pace with the real world asset trends and the tokenized money market fund trends that are taking place. And we see that there's been some changes in their definitions and how they classify these assets in law. And so, yeah, watch this space. Bermuda and Cayman clearly are looking to stay abreast and ahead of the technology and legal wave. So, with that, I'd like to bring back Eva to talk about updates in the USA.
Oh, the USA. The USA has had many things happening. I will be quick. I think we're going to run over, I'm afraid, or not afraid, because I want to make sure we cover as much as possible. So, over in the US of A, there are further developments in the market structure bill. So last week we reported about the Clarity Act, which has passed, and the new Senate-backed Responsible Innovation in Finance Act, which is Republican-led in the Senate, and how the two are going to be sort of debated and merged together. And the news as of last week is that there were 12 Democrats who publicly stated that they would be working with the Republicans on the digital asset market structure bill. This is very significant because it took some time and some back and forth and some drama to get Genius and Clarity passed. And it is very much the case that some Democrats want to be involved and not create gridlock, and to make sure that their agenda items usually around consumer protection, are included in the new draft bill. But not all Democrats were on board with this letter. So Elizabeth Warren, who's a very vocal senator a Democratic senator, who said that she was concerned about some of these bills being industry written, i.e., driven by the lobbyists. So I think the lesson here is not a lesson; it is an observation that there will be further negotiation. There is a time frame. They are saying that they will have something on President Trump's desk by Thanksgiving, but we don't know that for sure when it will actually happen. So on to the next slide. I will be quick because this is just a quick follow-up story that Gary Gensler, the ex-SEC chair, is still around, and he's still saying things about what he believes to have been the right course of action to have taken in terms of enforcement, and what he believes to be tokens, and which ones are securities and which ones are not, and so other further strong language around that. Next slide, please. This is actually not a news story about crypto, but a news story about journalism. In that last week we marked the fact that we in Reg Rewind were talking about more than just regulatory in crypto, but we were talking about all things Web3. And interestingly enough, Cointelegraph, one of our news sources that we follow to create Reg Rewind, was talking about introducing a clear editorial stance designed to celebrate their industry and the values that they hope to participate. So they're going to talk about their cornerstone values, which are pragmatic decentralization, pragmatic privacy, personal sovereignty, and digital ownership rights, which is and talking about innovation rather than just crypto. They're going to talking about the industry as a force of good, guided by prudence, ethics, and the clarity of purpose. I really like that. It's the first time I've seen a major media outlet talk about their ethics and their purpose. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And on the US still, and talking about things that are not crypto, but value driven, I'd like to invite back Gustav to talk about Coin Center, which is one of the US-based organizations, educational organizations that we also follow, talking about digital identity.
Thank you, Eva. Yeah, that's really interesting because Coin Center made a report on digital identity, and they stated that currently AML and KYC systems are vastly expensive and ineffective. They stop less than 1% of criminal funds, but cost hundreds of billions and endanger ordinary citizens' privacy. So their solution is to start using Web3 tools that are standardized or that are currently developed. So they want to have verifiable digital credentials that you have the control over yourself and you just show it to the people that you need to show it. They want zero knowledge proof to prove attributes without revealing personal data, and they want to use open decentralized infrastructure like blockchain without a central control. So that's really cool. So they want to go from a siloed documentation to a passportable ID that is that you can use in a decentralized economy or in a decentralized space. And instead of verifying your identity, you verify your attribute that someone has looked at you and said you were not a terrorist or whatever the purpose of all these regulations are. Um, and with that, taking a static, a dynamic risk assessment instead of a static, so you don't go everywhere in a static yes or no conversation, but you have one verifier and then you walk around with whatever you want. So they want to encourage standards, they want to encourage certification, they mandate for acceptance of safe harbors. Um, they also talk about developer protection, Eva, that's normally
Yeah.
your thing, and about data minimization. So this is really a good step forward. And their goal, as they define it, is to protect American values like privacy and freedom, and ensure that the US is still going to be on the forefront of technical development, even if this technical development takes on a different shape than the technical developments in the Web2 space that we have seen previously.
That's pretty interesting developments in terms of real world use cases for blockchain decentralized technologies and looking at problems that exist out there that could have decentralized solutions. Question though, and digital identity is what they're talking about. How does that differentiate with individuality or personhood?
That's an interesting question because I think it's a different field to cover. So the identity thing is I want to have a person and around it I want to have personal data, and maybe I don't share the personal data, but I want the personal data to be verified. That's the identity thing. And the individuality, the proof of personhood, is I want to prove that I'm human, but I don't need to prove my personal data. So I would be
No.
interacting with someone to prove that I'm not a bot. We all know that when we go on websites where you have to click stuff to be not a bot. But this is getting more and more complicated, and we want to have that also portable. So that's probably also a similarity to what I just talked about. We want to verify that we are human once or on a regular time or whatever, but we don't want to do it every time. We want to go somewhere and prove that we are human without having all our personal data attached to it. So this is more about who am I talking to, bot or human, while the other one is who am I talking to, what's your family name and what's your date of birth. So it
Yes.
has similarities, but its proof of personhood is even more anonymous, I would say, and it's just about being human or an individual and not being identical with someone or not identical with someone.
So both different solutions that they could solve, different problems that they could solve, but also different legal issues that would be associated with the two of them. And on
Definitely.
that note, I think we move over to our funny story and wrap it up for this session of Reg Rewind. Over to you, Glenn, with your funny story.
Thank you, Eva. So the funny story for this week is that LimeWire, the peer-to-peer music sharing provider, has acquired the Fire Festival brand, which they won at an auction for about $245,000. Now, for context, Fire Festival launched in 2017 and was promoted as a luxurious music festival in the Bahamas, but became infamous as attendees found themselves in disaster relief tents with no proper food. I believe they was given cheese sandwiches, but were promised like gourmet meals. So it was really, not the best conditions for a luxurious music festival. Now, LimeWire says that it will not revive the failed Fire Festival itself, so no more cheese sandwiches in the Bahamas, but instead it will reimagine the brand and meme with crypto integration, potentially a LimeWire token, and possibly NFTs for original ticket holders. LimeWire's CEO stressed the focus will be on real experiences, credibility, and of course, humor. So we'll wait to see if LimeWire and Fire can revive themselves. But time will tell how things pan out with the merger of LimeWire and Fire Festival.
That
So
sounds
I
like
think
a fantastically interesting festival to see how it would develop, and whether it will also be in the Bahamas or it would be a campsite somewhere.
potentially. So I think we're at time, or maybe past time. But I would like to thank everyone for tuning into this week's Rec Rewind, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
See you
2
in
weeks
2
time.
weeks.
Sorry.
2 weeks
Yes.
time. Thank you
Yes.
very much, Glenn and Gustav.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.